Okay, Shalom Akim, Kahalayim La Yahaba Hashem Yahshua Hashem Kodash, double honors to great and apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone, and Yaratazar, you find this video edifying and exhorting. Edifying meaning to build up, exhort means to encourage. So, this will be the part 9 to the Joseph series. Joseph is an example of conviction, which a conviction is a deeply, firmly held belief. So that's what that is. So I'm gonna read this, Yaratazar, get a few precepts, and that's really the wrap up. So this should be the ending video to the little series. And Yaratazar, I will continue the Latin American history as well in due time. So Genesis 45 and verse 1, it says, then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him, and he cried, cause every man to go, and he says, cause every man to go out from me, and there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. So of course, Joseph, was in tears, considering the fact that he just revealed himself unto actually, hold on, I believe he just revealed himself unto his brethren. Hold on, if you take this source from mischief. Yeah, I'm read into it, but the point is that he's about to, because of course this whole time they didn't really know Joseph was their brother. Of course, this has been many years, 14 years. I say 14 years, well, technically 14 years, because not 14 years, but more than 7, because of the fact that I'm just thinking of it in the perspective of that 7 years of harvest, so that's already passed, and then you're 2 years into the famine, which I believe it was mentioned here, either in Genesis 45. Yeah, it's mentioned here, I might as well just keep reading. Salakia, okay. So, and when I say Salakia, for any new brothers or sisters, Salak means forgive, Salakia means forgive me. So, let's do this. Verse 2, it says, and he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph, doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. Oh, so Salaki, because I remember reading Genesis 45, after I did a video on Genesis 44, so I kind of got confused where Joseph actually revealed himself to his brothers, but it's in Genesis 45. So he asked of his father, he said he's Joseph. Now verse 4, and his brethren, obviously, they were troubled, because they were like, damn, Joseph's still alive? Who knows what type of thoughts were coming, but they were in shock. So verse 4, and Joseph said unto his brethren, come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves that ye sold me hither. For the Most High did send me before you to preserve life. So Joseph now understood the purpose of why, his brothers, sold him to the Midianites before the Midianites then, of course, took him to Egypt, or sold him to Egypt. Now it says, now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For the Most High did send me before you to preserve life. And these were his own brothers, man. Blood brothers treating you like this, just, because they were jealous, man. It was jealousy, it was anger. So, but of course, Most High put a calm spirit, and not just a calm spirit, but free from having a spirit of understanding, to be able to know, all right, to be able to forgive his brothers, and also to tell them that, it was ultimately for the Most High's will, which is the purpose of why that happened. So verse 6, which is what, let me just read it. Genesis 45 and 6, for these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. So of course, in that 7 years of famine, which Pharaoh had a dream of, and Joseph interpreted, they're 2 years into the famine, and they got 5 years left. So it says, and the Most High sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save you save your lives by a great deliverance. So of course there was a purpose behind what seemed as unrighteousness, or what seemed as unfair, I should say. There was actually a purpose ultimately by the Most High as well, as I repeated just now. It says, and the Most High sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. In fact, let me just get into this word posterity, see what it says in the blue letter, and if need be, I might get the Google definition too. Yeah, so Genesis 45 and verse 7. Alright, let's see. Let me read in the NLT first. It says, the Most High has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors. So that's what that meant there. Now let's get this root word for posterity. See, Joseph was the tool used by the Most High, to preserve his family, and not just his family. And when I say his family, I'm talking about, his brothers, where he, from Jacob, and also their families as well, of which they had. Right, so let's get posterity. Alright, so let me play out.
Strong's H7611. She'erith. She'erith. And second entry, Sherith. Sherith.
So that modern Hebrew word Sherith, because obviously there's a difference between the modern Hebrew and the ancient Hebrew. In the Blue Letter Bible, of course, we see the modern Hebrew. But nevertheless, Sherith means rest, residue, remainder, remnant. So it says rest, what is left, remainder, descendants, it also says as well. So of course, let me read that again. So Genesis 45 and verse 7, the Most High sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth. And of course, as we know from the root word, it says descendants. So preserve you a descendant or descendants in the earth. Because we know in the NLT it talks about, I'll read the NLT again. It says, the Most High has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive. So of course that families, again, aka you can see as descendants, because when you go into the root word of posterity, it talks about descendants and what is left, the remnant. So that's the point. Most had a purpose for Joseph, and it wasn't just some unfair treatment. Of course, it's hard to understand these things when you're currently going through it, but when you think of it in a long time span, you're able to say, well, when the Most High reveals it, then you understand. So for example, in the kingdom, all the afflictions we're going through right now, all of them will understand why we went through it, especially for what we did in our past lives. Of course, reincarnation, and also, in terms of how our families could have also benefited too, so, or have benefited rather. All right, verse 8, Genesis 45 and 8. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but the Most High, and he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. So the Most High has exalted Joseph. Despite everything that he went through, Joseph still maintained that faith, that conviction, that firm belief in Yahweh. So the same way we have to maintain our conviction in Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, despite all the world outward influences that try to penetrate our minds. But nevertheless of that, we know and we stand strong with Yahweh Bashim Yahshai. We know what we know, and of course anyone who tries to tell us otherwise, they're just wasting their breath essentially. That's the mindset they have to have. It's all just vain words trying to influence you, but again, you have to have the mindset where it's like all their attacks, all their so-called influence is just weak and have no effect. Remember it says in Ezekiel 3, he's made our heads far stronger than others. Of course, I very loosely phrased that, but he's made our foreheads stronger. And that was referring to Israelites as well, because Israelites can be quite hard-headed. So that don't fear them. The Most High has made our heads, our forehead, our minds, which what that refers to, our minds and spirits, far stronger than this. All right, hold on. I'm not sure if it was Ezekiel 3 or Ezekiel 5. Let's hold on. Oh yeah, it was. Alright, so Ezekiel, this is Ezekiel 3 and 8. It says, Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their forehead. So our mind, our spirit, our bodies, through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, is far stronger than their spirit. Well, yeah, of course, their spirit and their mind. So really, if we're made, this is, the scriptures, this is the words of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. We know that he's not a man that he should lie. Let me try to get that as well. Hold on. So this is Numbers 23 and 19. It says, The Most High is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? You see, so let me read that in the NLT as well. So the Most High is not a man, so he does not lie. But sometimes, well, yeah, it's true though, because he ain't a physical man. Of course, he's really as the word goes, an entity, a spiritual entity. He does have the limitations of man. So it says, so he does not lie, and there ain't no need for the Most High to lie. So it says, the reason why I said that, because it says, the NLT is saying, God is not a man, but the thing is, a simple man would get tripped up by that. But the point is that the fact that he does have the physical limitations of man. That's how you should see it. It's not the fact, I'm not even going to go there. So it says, so he does not lie. He is not human, so he does not change his mind. Has he ever spoken and failed to act? That's a rhetorical question. You don't need an answer. It's self-explanatory. Has he ever promised and not carried it through? So the same way, just from that, this is why the scripture is saying Isaiah 28 and 10, precept upon precept, line upon line. So going back to Ezekiel 3, it says, Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. So really, we don't have to worry about or be fearful or be anxious about these vessels of the world, because really, they're the ones who actually fear us, because again, that's why, Samuel, when he came in, the people of the sea, they said, comest thou peaceably? I believe that's 1 Samuel 16. So anyways, it says in verse 9, Ezekiel 3 and 9, As an adamant harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks. You see? And this is what Yahweh Shem Yahushai is saying. He's made us far stronger than Israelites of the world. Than these wicked Israelites. It says, I made thy forehead, as an adamant harder than flint, have I made thy forehead, which means he's given us very, very strong minds, very, very strong spirits. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks. Don't look at their faces and think that, oh, he's looking at me. No. So it says, neither be dismayed at their looks. Don't let it catch you off guard or something. Though there be a rebellious house. Let me read it in the NLT, New Living Translation. I have made your forehead as hard as the hardest rock. So don't be afraid of them or fear their angry looks. Don't fear their angry looks. That's what Yahweh is commanding us through these scriptures, because these are his words. It says, so don't be afraid of them or fear their angry looks, even though they are rebels. You see, rebellious against Yahweh Shem Yahushua. So, anyways, sometimes you have to be going on a tangent, man. Let me focus on Genesis 45. But yeah, that's the point. That's the point right there. He's made our minds far stronger, man. So really, we ain't gotta fear them. But let's get back to Genesis 45. Genesis 45 and verse 8. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but the Most High, and he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste you and go to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, the Most High hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks and thy herds, and all that thou hast, and there will I nourish thee. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. So, Joseph was looking after his people, as Jake would say, looking after my people. So, yeah, so, behold your eyes, in verse 12 now, Genesis 45 and 12, behold your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that is my mouth that speaketh unto you. And ye shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and of all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. He fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. So of course, they were crying with each other, man. Because remember, all that they had to go through, the time as well that they had to wait before they can, get access to Joseph again. Oh boy. So yeah, it's understandable that they cried, upon each other's shoulders. Verse 15, moreover, he kissed all his brethren and wept upon them, and after that his brethren talked with him. And the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come, and it pleased Pharaoh well and his servants. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, say unto thy brethren, this do ye, lade your beasts and go, get ye unto the land of Canaan. And take your father and your households, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and ye shall eat the fat of the land. Now thou art commanded, this do ye, take you wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. So of course, get some, some carrots so that, so that you can bring your family along, So that's what the wagons were for. And obviously for their belongings as well. It says, well, to be fair, I say belongings, but this next verse explains it. Verse 20, it says, also regard not your stuff, for the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. So it's like, don't worry about bringing your belongings. It says, Joseph was going to accommodate them, as well as the Pharaoh. Pharaoh was also down with it too, as we're reading right now. Verse 21, and the children of Israel did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the commandment of Pharaoh, and gave them provision for the way. To all of them he gave each man changes of raiment, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 500 raiment. Yeah, Benjamin was getting rewarded, man. Eating or whatnot. In fact, before I even say that, let's see. Verse 23. Let me just focus on this. So verse 23 says, and to his father he sent after this manner 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent, let me close the door quickly. The washing machine in the background. Alright, so verse 25 says, and they went. Actually, start from verse 20, 24. No, 23. Yeah, Genesis 45, verse 23. That's a lot, Kim, if I make a mistake whilst quoting it. But yeah, Genesis 45 and verse 23 says, and to his father he sent after this manner 10 asses laden with the good things of Egypt, and 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. So he sent his brethren away, and they departed, and he said unto them, see that ye fall not out by the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and came into the land of Canaan, and unto Jacob their father, and told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. And they told him all the words of Joseph which he has said unto them. And when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. So he was pleased just to hear the news of Joseph still being alive after all these years. And Israel said, it is enough. Joseph my son is yet alive. I will go and see him before I die. So yeah, Jacob, aka Israel, which is what he was renamed to, was going to visit his son once more after all these years. So again, these things are the key learning lesson is the fact that there was a purpose. There was a purpose to his brother selling him, selling him to these other nations, Midianites, which I believe they're also like a subsect of the Ishmaelites. So there was a purpose behind it. There was a purpose behind the afflictions that Joseph had gone through, but he still remained faithful in Yahweh, in the Most High. So of course, that's a learning lesson that we also have. In fact, speaking of learning lessons, let me get this. Alright, so this is Romans 15 and verse 4. It says, for whatsoever things were written aforetime, so whatever things were written before us, before our time, prior. It says, which is these scriptures, by the way, because they were written before our time. Well, when I say before our time, not to get into the technicals, but before this lifetime that we're living in right now. For those who understand, you understand. So, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. You see, so that's the point right there. It says anything written beforehand, it's written so that we can learn from, and of course we learn from it so that we can apply it to our lives as well. We apply it to our lives, and whatever the scenario that we're given, we use these scriptures as wisdom in order to apply, or as knowledge in order to apply, with wisdom, to those custom scenarios that Yahweh Shai puts us through. So that was it, man. They always got to know here, despite at that moment, Joseph not understanding why, his brothers sold him out, but at the end of the day, he then understood. He understood, oh, okay, so it's for the most, it's because of the fact that he set in before his family so they could prepare the way for this 7 years of famine, to provide them with food. So, certain things that we go through, in this truth, there's a reason why we go through them. Yahweh Shem Yashah knows why. Sometimes we may not understand, because, we get into our emotions here and there. But nevertheless, the point is that, okay, there's a reason why we're going through this. And of course, in the end, in the kingdom, we're going to get that holistic understanding. The Most High might give you a little trinket, or maybe even allows you to understand what you're going through, which we know, of course, again, the servant's not greater than his master. So we must go through our affliction as well as Yahushua did too. But again, in a holistic sense, we're going to comprehend everything across all the lifetimes, all regenerations in the kingdom of Yahushua. So that's really the main point, man. Let me get is to learn from these things. And once we learn, we apply them as well. And really, again, going back to that word, which is the core part of this lesson, is conviction, a firmly held belief. He still believed in the Most High. He didn't waver. He still kept praying. He still kept his faith. And remember, he was favored. He had grace. He had that faith, which is what grace really means. Grace means favor, from Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua. And that's how you're supposed to walk. Let's see. It's got to be a firmly held belief, which is what conviction means, as I repeated just now. Alright, so Hebrews 11 and verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So, people always talk about having tangible evidence. All right, where's the proof? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? As they say over here in the UK, where's the proof? But anyways, the proof itself is the mere belief, the mere faith. That's the proof. As it says here, literally, that's the definition of faith by the scriptures. It says, now faith is a substance, the strength of things hoped for. Which, when you hope for something, you have a level of expectation. It says, for the evidence, it says the evidence, so the proof of things not seen. We know that the angels surround us, daily, second by second, in order to protect us. And of course, as it says in Psalms 34 and verse 7, which is again another firmly held belief, the angels of the Lord encampeth around them that fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. We fear Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. That's why we're pushed to do these videos. We're pushed to go out there for camp. We're pushed to also support the brotherhood too. So these things, the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is what we firmly believe in. Anyone else who goes against that, really are pushed to the side, because it's like you don't want some poison to infect you. That's what it's like. It's like, okay, if you want to come here with your Islam, with your Christianity, step to the side, please, respectfully. And if you keep persisting, you will suffer the consequence once a brother sends up a prayer to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. So verse 6 now. Hebrews 11 and verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to the Most High must believe that he is. And of course that's what his name means. That's what Yahweh means. He is, he exists, or he is to be. And that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And of course, that belief, that faith, that substance of things hoped for, because we're hoping in the salvation that Yahushua has given us the path for. In that faith, that requires, of course, diligently seeking him, with careful and persistent effort, which is what diligence means. So, of course, we're cautious upon this work so that we again offend less. And of course, Yaratazar, that we're forgiven of our sins as well, because a just man falleth 7 times. Which 7 means completion, which means a complete number of times, of which the Most High has willed. That's the way of saying that, which the Most High has determined for you to fall down for. Every brother's got their custom path. Alright, but yeah, that's the same. That's what Joseph showed. He showed that level of faith, man. That substance of things hoped for. He had that dream, from early on when he was younger. That his family would pretty much bow down to him, which is what his dream meant. There's 2 dreams that he had, and of course he kept going, man. Of course, and again, as he was leveled up, as he was raised in Egypt, of course he would have understood. Oh, okay, so that's what that dream meant, because his brothers literally bowed down to him when they needed food as well. So that's it, man. He had that faith. He had that substance, he had that strength for things hoped for. And that was the evidence of things not seen as well. The faith alone in the vision that Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, or the dream that Yahweh Bashim Yahshua had placed upon Joseph. But yeah, let me get this final precept. So sometimes, you be going through certain injustices, and then you be wondering why you're going through it. The Most High's got the whole plan. He's got your whole storyline planned out, man. So the point is, it's not in vain. 1 Peter 2 and verse 19. For this is thankworthy if a man of conscience towards the Most High endure grief, suffering wrongfully. It says it's thankworthy. So it's that, can you hold your tongue when you're going through an injustice, or can you just, let it fly by? That's the real question. Verse 20. For what glory is it if when ye be buffeted for your faults, ye shall take it patiently? But if ye do well and suffer for it, ye take it patiently. This is acceptable for the Most High. So you gotta just go through it. You just take it patiently. The Most High will accept you for doing that, for tolerating that injustice. That's just it. And, of course, the Most High puts us through certain scenarios so that we can apply these precepts too. There's one thing, saying it in the video, but it's like, okay, can you apply it to your own life? That's it. Whatever custom scenario that the Most High has created for you. And sometimes you gotta go through that several times in order to learn, all right, let me just calm down, let it be. Even though it's not right, just let it be. So yeah, anyways, I'm gonna leave it at that. Shalom Akim, Yahbashim Yahshua Brakatha, Kala Imla Yahbashim Yahshua Bashim Hakudash, and double honors to great Muslim apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone. Shalom.